Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. So, yes, brother always mentioned the hadith that we were mentioning, and this hadith that we mentioned, la nujarridannaki, the wording is indeed the way we mentioned. So, yani, Ali radiallahu anh, yani, he threatened the woman, and he said to her that la tukhrijinna al-kitaba aw la nujarridannaki, either you take out the book, يعني the letter that was sent by Hatib, or we will strip you of your clothes. So مجرد يعني الشاهد من هذا أن التجريد أو مجرد means something free of any additions, free of any free, it's only pure and it's in its أصل form. طيب ثم ذكرنا هنا يا إخوان المجرد الثلاثي والرباعي, two types, either it has 3 root letters or 4 root letters, and in mazid fihi we have thalathi mazid fihi, and 3 root letters, and then we have additional letters, either 1 letter that is additional or 2 or 3. Likewise in al-ruba'i al-mazid fihi there is 4 root letters and 1 additional letter or 2 additional letters. This inshallah we will work on this, we will work on each one of these each one of these examples or each one of these families. They are a chapter in and of itself. لحظة, 1 second. طيب يا إخوان, فإذا الثلاثي المزيد فيه والرباعي المزيد فيه هكذا أمره. Each one of these are a chapter in and of its own, and each one of these families will be studied يعني على حدة. على حدة means يعني one each and separately. This is an Arabic word, على حدة. It's used in Urdu as well, على حدة. It's written together, but in Arabic it's written as 2 separate words, على حدة. على حدة. طيب. So نبدأ الآن بارك الله فيكم وننظر فيها. طيب. When it comes to these families يا إخوان, it is very important to learn some principles before we start studying these families. Before we start studying these families, it is extremely important to learn some principles. And before we learn these principles, most of which are related to, and most of which are directly related to the first 6 families, and the rest of the families, sometimes they will have some things related to it. So it is very important to first learn the mudari' of each one of these families. And these are 6 families, and the first family is called Nasara Yansuru. Nasara Yansuru. The second family is called Fataha Yaftahu. Fataha Yaftahu. Third family is called Daraba Yadribu. Okay. Fourth family is called Alima Ya'lamu. You have to note this down. Fifth family is called Hasiba Yahsibu. And the 6th family is called Hasuna Yahsunu. What is going on here? Why do we have these families, and why are we mentioning these 6 particular examples and using them as the name or the title for the family? This is a very important question. First of all, ya ikhwan, these families don't represent one fi'al, they represent a lot of af'al that are on the same pattern, Now let me give you an example. مثلا here, Nasara Yansuru. On the same pattern we have Qatala Yaqtulu. Okay, how do we determine these patterns? You look at the haraka of Ainul Fi'l. The Ainul Fi'l. In these 6 families in particular, it's very important to look at the haraka of the Ainul Fi'l. So if the Ainul Fi'l, and this is Mujarrad Thulathi, those those Mujarrad Af'aal, which have 3 root letters, then we have 6 families in it. And these 6 families, this variety is based on the following. It's based on the haraka of the ain. So fa'ala can have 3 possibilities. Like when the madi has a, let me just erase this first. The madi has a fatha on the ain. When the madi has a fatha on the ain, then the mudari' can be of 3 types. Mudari' having, let me just first write this down. It can either have a dhamma on the ain, or a fatha on the ain in the mudari', or a kasra on the ain. So fa'ala yaf'ulu is one family. Fa'ala yaf'alu is another family. And fa'ala yaf'ilu is another family. We have 3 families, all of whom they emerge from the fa'ala, from the madi, which has a fatha on its ain, which has a fatha on its ain. طيب يا شباب, 3 families. And because it is difficult to remember these families by saying fa'ala yaf'ulu, fa'ala yaf'alu, fa'ala yaf'ilu, sometimes you don't really clearly hear the haraka that is on the ain. When I quickly say fa'ala yaf'ulu, so whether it was fatha or dhamma or what was it exactly, sometimes it's difficult to detect with your hearing with what exactly was the haraka you were saying. For this reason, we gave these families names. So the family, we gave them names by using a very famous example for them. And any famous example of a fi'l belonging to one of these families, we use it to refer to this family. For example, the family of fa'ala yaf'ulu, yani those af'al having a fatha on the ain in its madi and a dhamma on its ain in the mudari', we refer to them as the family of nasara yansuru. Why? Because nasara yansuru is a famous example of a fi'l belonging to this family, having a fatha on the ain in the madi and a dhamma on the ain in the mudari'. So to make it easy, we refer to the family of fa'ala yaf'ulu as the family of nasara yansuru. To make it easy to refer to the family of fa'ala yaf'alu, yani those af'al, this family is of those verbs and those af'al, thulathi mujarrad. Mujarrad means that have no additional letters. Thulathi, that consists of only 3 root letters. These or those af'al thulathi mujarrad which have a fatha on the ain in the madi and a fatha on the ain in the mudari' as well, we gave them the name with their most famous example, which is fataha yaftahu. Fataha yaftahu. Because this is an example of a fi'l belonging to the family of fa'ala yaf'alu, having a fatha on the ain in the madi and a fatha on the ain in the mudari'. Fataha yaftahu. For fa'ala yaf'ilu, we gave them, this family, the name of daraba yadribu, as it is one of the most famous examples of a verb belonging to this family, daraba yadribu, having a fatha on the ain in the madi and a kasra on the ain in the mudari'. So when I say the family of nasara yansuru, I actually mean to refer to fa'ala yaf'ulu. When I say the family of fataha yaftahu, I mean to refer to the family of fa'ala yaf'alu. And when I say the family of ضرب يضرب, I mean to refer to the family of فعل يفعل. فعل يفعل. يعني those أفعال which are مجرد. مجرد means having no additional letters. They are ثلاثي. ثلاثي means they have 3 root letters. They don't have 4 root letters. And they have a fatha on the madi, on the ain in the madi, and different harakat depending on the family that we are referring to. طيب. Then we have, ya ikhwan, similar to the families of fa'ala, we have the families of fa'ila, which we can mention here. Fa'ila. Fa'ila. In the madi, we have kasra on the ain. For this, there are 2 possibilities. Instead of having fa'ila, instead of having 3 possibilities, just like fa'ala, we rule out the possibility of having a dhamma on the mudari'. Why is that the case? That inshallah we will mention soon. So we have the first family in which the madi has a kasra on the ain and the mudari' has a fatha on the ain. And then the second family is madi having a kasra on the ain and also the mudari' having a kasra on the ain. In order to make it easy for us to refer to these families, we gave them names. We gave the name family fa'ila yaf'alu, the name of alima ya'lamu, using its most famous example, the famous example of a fi'al belonging to this family, alima ya'lamu, which also has a kasra on its ain in the madi and fatha on the ain in the mudari'. With regards to fa'ila yaf'ilu, we gave it the name hasiba yahsibu, using one of the examples famous for belonging to this family, having kasra on the ain, yani on the second root letter in both madi and mudari'. The question is, why wasn't it possible for us to have also a family in which the madi was fa'ila and the mudari' was yaf'ulu? Does anyone know this, ya ikhwan? Why wasn't it possible for us to have a family in which the madi was fa'ila and the mudari' was yaf'ulu? The answer to this is, ya ikhwan, that the Arabs find it thaqeel and heavy to move and shift from kasra to dhamma. The Arabs find it thaqeel to move from the kasra to the dhamma. And hence, there is no fi'l, generally speaking, there is no fi'l in which the madi is on the wazn of fa'ila with the kasra on the ain, and the mudari' is on the wazn of yaf'ulu with a dhamma on the ain, because it is thaqeel and burdensome and heavy to move from the kasra to the dhamma. And that is why we only have 2 families belonging to fa'ila. 2 families belonging to fa'ila, that is alima ya'lamu and hasiba yahsibu. واضح يا اخوان? This is clear inshallah?
It's clear, inshallah.
طيب. Finally, we are left with the last possibility of mudari', and that is fa'ula. Let me write fa'ula here. يعني the madi having a dhamma on its ain. A dhamma on its ain. With this, ya ikhwan, there is only one far' or one branch, and that is yaf'ulu. And we don't have the other 3 options. What is the reason for it? Allahu a'lam. What's the reason for it? Allahu a'lam. I personally don't know of any reason, but it can be searched into the books of Sarf and we can know from the kalam of the ulama why is that the reason. يفعل. فعل يفعل. In order to refer to this family and make it easy for us to refer to it and not be confused with the haraka that you pronounced and not misinterpret the haraka that you pronounced, we gave this family a name. We gave it the name of, or we gave it the name with its famous example, Hasuna Yahsunu, which has, just like the family belongs to, Dhamma on the Ain in the Madi and Dhamma on the Ain in the Mudari' as well. In this way, ya ikhwan, we get 6 families for Mujarrad Thulathi. We get 6 families for Mujarrad Thulathi. The rest of the abwab, they are much more simpler. But these 6 families, they have an exclusive set of rulings for them, some exclusive principles for them, etc. So, but here, ya ikhwan, with the rest of them are much more simple. Yani if you start from here, from Dahraja until Taqatala, all of these are much more simple in terms of the content that you have to prepare or learn related to them. But these 6 families, they have a certain set of different rules and principles. So I hope that so far you're able to grasp and understand where we got these 6 families from. Why have we divided the Thulathi Mujarrad? Mujarrad means those Af'aal not having any additional letters, and Thulathi meaning a 3-letter root. Now I hope that you understand where did we get these 6 families from? Where did we get these 6 families from? We got them from the haraka of the ayn. We got them from the haraka of the ayn in the Madi and in the Mudari'. So these 3 families, first ones, they belong to Fa'ala, having a fatha on its ayn. And these 2 families belong to Fa'ila, having a kasra on its ayn. And the last family belongs to Fa'ula, having a dhamma on its ayn. By looking at the harakat, we made these 6 families. Right. Why did we make these 6 families? Why didn't we make more families by also looking at the haraka on the lam? This is a question for you, and you should be able to answer this question. Why didn't we take into consideration the haraka on the lam al-fi'l when making these families? Who will tell us? Who will answer this question? Why didn't we take into consideration these harakas that are on the lam al-fi'l? Hi, Ikhwan. Why did we not take into consideration the harakat on the lam al-fi'l? It's an easy, if you think about it, it's easy. But you'll have to just broaden your thinking a little bit.
Because in Sarf, in Sarf, okay, I think that always has answered what I wanted to say.
What is it that you're saying? I think you're close.
The last haraka is related to Nahu. Here we are dealing with Sarf, so and the changing of the words has to do with the middle letter.
Ahsan, Mumtaz. Here we are dealing with the structure of the word, not with the haraka at the ends of the words. This is related to Nahu. That's a topic for Nahu. Yansuru, lan yansura, lam yansur. Ahsant. The subject of Nahu, Mudari' is Mu'rab. Ahsant. Because this is the subject of Nahu. كما ذكر الأخ أبو بكر والأخ أويس. But this is the subject of Nahu. What harakat they should be at the end of the word. Yansuru, yansura, yansur, wa sukun, whatever they are. This is all endings of the words are subject of the science of Nahu. That's not related to Sarf. Okay. I also want you to contemplate a little bit why aren't we discussing the haraka on the harf al-mudara'a. ينصر, يفتح, يضرب, فتحة, يعلم, يحسب, يحسن. Why aren't we taking this into consideration, ya ikhwan? Because it is the harf al-mudara'a, what haraka will come on it. Yani, again, it's first of all, yani, it's constant for the thulathi. It's constant for the thulathi. It's constant for the thulathi mujarrad. It will always be fatha. And that's the haraka of harf al-mudara'a. Harf al-mudara'a, نعم يا أخي أبا بكر, you can leave for the Maghrib prayer. تفضل. حرف المضارعة, again, يعني it comes with a constant haraka. And حرف المضارعة, the haraka of حرف المضارعة, it's not the subject of يعني sarf, in this sense that it's not related to the root of the word. يعني it's not related to the root of the word. Yes, in the ruba'i families we have حرف المضارعة coming with a dhamma, but that's pretty much it. That's it. That's what you read. The haraka remains constant. The haraka remains constant throughout the thulathi mujarrad. So what is constant, khalas, you don't need to take it into consideration. Likewise, the haraka of the fa'ul fi'l was also constant throughout these families. It was sukun, 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 sukun. Yansuru, yaftahu, yadribu, ya'lam, yahsib, yahsun. So all of these harakat, the rest of the harakat were all constant. So we didn't take them into consideration. What was that which was variable? What is the thing that varied? It was the haraka of ayn. In all of the thulathi af'al, thulathi mujarrad af'al, the haraka of the ayn varied. And hence we made the family, these 6 families, on the basis of the haraka of ayn. Fa'ala, fatha on the ayn. Yaf'ulu, dhamma on the ayn in the mudari'. Fa'ala, yaf'alu. Fa'ala, yaf'ilu. فاعل يفعل فاعل يفعل فاعول يفعل. الآن فهمتم إن شاء الله? Did you understand how we made these 6 families? هيا يا أخوان, هل فهمتم كيف كونا هذه الأبواب ال6? Is this clear إن شاء الله يا إخوان? الحمد لله. طيب. If this is clear, then know يا إخوان that any ثلاثي مجرد فعل, any فعل belonging to the mujarrad means no additional letters, and it is ثلاثي, يعني it has a 3-letter root. It will not go out of any. It will not go out of these 6 families. لن يخرج عن هذه الأبواب ال6. It will be part of one of these 6 families. Always. It will always be part of one of these 6 families. So any فعل ثلاثي مجرد, any فعل ثلاثي مجرد, ذهب يذهب, أكل يأكل, شرب يشرب, كتب يكتب, نام ينام, فتح يفتح, جلس يجلس, ركب يركب, لبس يلبس, لبس يلبس. Any of these family, any فعل that is ثلاثي مجرد will belong to one of these families for sure. It will not go out of these 6 families. It will belong to one of these 6 families, no matter what. No matter what, it will belong to one of these families. طيب. Before progressing to the qawaid that are specially related to these 6 families, that will help us determine which family a fi'l belongs to. It's not always this simple that you look at ذهب يذهب and you say it belongs to the family of Fatah Yaftah. It's not always this simple. There is some difficulty at times. So in order to cope with that difficulty, we will have to learn some principles and maxims, qawaid sarfiyya, in order to be able to determine which family a fi'l belongs to. In order to be able to determine which family a fi'l belongs to. Before we move on to these qawaid sarfiyya, it is important to understand why do we want to determine the family of a fi'l. Why do we want to determine? Why can't we just randomly say nasura yansuru or nasira yansaru or nasara yansiru? Why can't we just randomly put a haraka on the ayn? Labisa yalbasu, why can't we just randomly say labasa yalbisu? Just make it random. Yani, leave it open to us and we use it the way we like. To understand this, ikhwan, firstly, it is important to know that one of the purposes of learning Sarf and Nahu is to not fall into something that is called lahn. And lahn is to go against the tradition of the Arabs, their way of speaking the language. So when the Arabs say nasara yansuru and you say nasara yansiru, then you're going against the tradition of the Arabs, and this is considered a mistake. It's considered an aib, a defect in your speech. And it's considered something that you are blameworthy for as a speaker of Arabic. Especially when you are reading hadith or Quran, mathalan, and you fall into lahn, you are attributing this lahn to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or attributing it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the lahn amongst the Arabs, it was considered very, very much blameworthy, something that is condemned and looked down upon. In all languages, when you make too many mistakes or you go against the tradition of the speakers and you wrongly pronounce words, it's a matter that it is looked down upon. It's condemned. It's considered blameworthy. And in Arabic, it's considered even more blameworthy because the Arabs were very much concerned with their language. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it would be it would be a source of or he would consider, being from Quraysh and being from the old Arabs, he would consider falling into lahn something that is a very big defect. And he was known for his eloquence in his speech, for his fasaha and balagha. So when you make a mistake when reading a hadith or Quran, you're attributing this lahn to the Prophet ﷺ, and something which the Prophet ﷺ deeply dislikes. So that's the first reason why we learn these families. Secondly, to also not fall into mistakes us ourselves. We also want to speak correct Arabic. So that's number two. And number three, which is the most important and with which we will end our dars for today, is that sometimes the same root letters, they can have two af'aal, one belonging to one family and the other fi'l belonging to another family. And when the family of the fi'l of the same root letters changes, the meaning changes. When the family of the same root letters changes, the meaning of the fi'l changes. And I will give you a couple of examples for this. And in order to give you an example, I'll just to have more space to write, I will move on to the next slide, even though we are not doing the qawaid right now. But just to have more space to write down, I will just move on to this next slide. And here, ya ikhwan, I will give you an example of a fi'l that is mentioned in the Quran. Both of them are mentioned in the Quran. But with the change in the family, the change in meaning occurs. The first is, labisa yalbasu. Second is labasa yalbisu. What are the root letters of labisa yalbasu and labasa yalbisu? Meanings change if you mix. Ahsant ya akhi Uwais. Sorry, I did not read your message. I just saw it. Samihni. طيب. What are the root letters of labasa yalbisu and labisa yalbasu?
Lam, Ba, and Sin.
Lam, Ba, and Sin. Same root letters. Same root letters. Okay. Looking at the families, the 6 families, which family does the first one, that is Labisa Yalbasu, belong to?
It is Alima Ya'lamu.
Ahsant. It belongs to the family of Alima Ya'lamu because of the kasra in the madi and the fatha in the mudari. And looking at the families again, which family does Labasa Yalbisu belong to?
It belongs to Daraba Yadribu.
It belongs to the family of Daraba Yadribu because of fatha in the madi and kasra in the mudari. What is the meaning of labisa yalbasu and what is the meaning of labasa yalbisu?
Labisa Yalbasu means to wear, like a dress, to wear a dress.
Sant, labisa yalbasu means to
wear. Labasa Yalbisu is to like intermix or mix. Labasa Yalbisu.
Ahsant, and labasa yalbisu means to mix, to wear and to mix. طيب. Now translate for us قول الله تعالى ولا تلبسوا الحق بالباطل ولا تلبسوا الحق بالباطل. What is the meaning of this ayah? What's the translation of this ayah? ولا تلبسوا الحق بالباطل.
It is and do not mix the truth with falsehood.
Ahsant. And if someone translates it as do not cover or do not make the truth wear the batil, then this will be a wrong translation. Because labisa yalbasu means to wear. Labasa yalbisu means to mix. And both are different. So you see how the meaning changes with the change in the family, the fi'l, the same root letters belong to. Akhi Uwais, mashallah, where did you know about the two, mashallah? Who is it that you yourself discovered the difference in the meanings, or you had learned it from somewhere?
Sheikh, you mentioned in one of the previous classes. You had mentioned this.
In Nahu or before that?
In Nahu, I think you mentioned it. In Nahu.
Oh, subhanallah. I also mentioned maybe.
Yes, Qadama Yaqdumu and Qadima Yaqdumu also you mentioned, I think.
Oh, sahih. Aywa, نسيت أنا. We also mentioned 2 other examples. There was one was a very relatively easy one, قدم يقدم, and قدم يقدم. قدم يقدم and قدم يقدم. What family does قدم يقدم belong to?
It is Alima Ya'lamu.
Alima Ya'lamu family. Okay. And which family does قدم يقدم belong to?
It is a Hasuna Yahsunu. Sorry, it is a Nasra Yansuru.
Nasara Yansuru. And what is the difference in the meaning of the two? قدم يقدم is used for مثلا for arrival. مثلا فلان arrived. قدم المدينة. He came to Medina. He reached Medina. قدم يقدم. He reached it. قدمت إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. I came to the messenger of Allah. I reached to the messenger. He arrived. Coming from far away, you reach the messenger of Allah. قدمت إليه. I came, but then I traveled to him. This is قدم يقدم. And قدم يقدم means to in English
like to lead someone.
To lead, ahsan, to lead, mumtaz. To lead someone. Like Fir'aun, it said about him in Surah يَقْدُمُ قَوْمَهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فَأَوْرَدَهُمُ النَّارِ. يَقْدُمُ, it does not mean he will arrive to his people and he was coming from far away. No, يَقْدُمُ, he will lead his people يعني he will be in front of them. يقدم he will يتقدمهم يعني he will lead يعني he will be in front of them on the day of judgment. يقدم قومه يوم القيامة فأوردهم النار, then he will cause them to go into the fire. And there is another example, and that is much more beneficial, but I will leave all of you with this example inshallah, and tomorrow I'll ask about it. And that is the three families, or the asl, qaf, dal, ra, belonging to three different families. qadira, yaqdaru, qadara, yaqdiru, and qadara, yaqduru. So it's three different families that it belongs to, and I will ask about, first of all, someone other than inshallah Brother Uwais, because Brother Uwais, mashallah, has known these families. Someone who will not have known the families yet, I will ask them, which family does qadira yaqdaru belong to, qadara yaqdiru belong to, and qadara yaqduru belongs to, and then I will ask the difference in the meanings, and this way we will inshallah also be able to learn the meaning of one ayah and one hadith بإذن الله تعالى إن شاء الله. فنقف هنا ونكتفي بهذا القدر، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. Any questions يا إخوان؟
Sheikh, I would just like to confirm. I think qaduma, also there is one more baba, hasuna yahsunu, qaduma yaqdumu.
Wallah, I personally don't know. I'm certain there must be. Allahu A'lam, there must be.
Like for that qadim.
قدم قديم صحيح. ممكن قدم يعني it is old and it has become old. صحيح. It can be. أحسنت. So yeah, this is another example. قدم يقدم. So inshallah we'll mention both. If you are asking, or you already know that there is قدم يقدم as well.
I heard from Sheikh Nabil himself. I heard Sheikh this.
ما شاء الله تبارك الله. قدم يقدم خلاص إذن يكون كذلك إذا قاله الشيخ نبيل فيكون الأمر كذلك إن شاء الله. I will also make sure that it is so بإذن الله تعالى. أبشر. إن شاء الله we'll discuss it tomorrow. جزاكم الله خير الجزاء والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.